Hi, Hida. Just checking you can hear me okay? Send me a message if that's all right.
Yep, Jonathan, I can hear you.
Brilliant. Thank you. I see we have a couple of people on the line already, so we'll just give it a couple more minutes. Let's check I have screen sharing.
Yep.
Good morning, everybody. You're very welcome to today's webinar. We're going to cover Revit for Architects. My name is Jonathan Reinhardt, And I'm here today on behalf of the Diatec group. They're an Autodesk Gold partner in Ireland. They provide Autodesk training, BIM training, IT hardware, and lots of other training services and Autodesk reselling there as well. So feel free to get in contact with Autodesk at diatec.ie. In addition, at the end of this webinar, you can also feel free to book a one-to-one demo with me. No obligation whatsoever, just to have a chat. If you're maybe transitioning or thinking about transitioning to a BIM workflow or upgrading your software to maybe something like Revit from perhaps Autocad or a 2D traditional workflow or software, feel free to drop us an email and we can have a chat, offer you some free advice and see if we can help you along your BIM journey. So feel free to just drop an email to autodesk at diatec.ie and just put in the subject line, just put my name, Jonathan, as a reference, just so the guys are aware of that. But feel free, by all means, any size business, you know, please get in contact. We're more than happy to offer our free advice and my industry experience as well in helping you on that journey. So I am a chartered architectural technologist as of recently. I've worked as a designer, as an architectural technologist extensively for about 14 years. Worked as a BIM manager as well. Now I work on technical consultancy for Autodesk distribution. I've about 16 years in the industry. That's across UK, Ireland and Australia. I've worked on BIM implementation for several SME architectural firms and larger firms as well. I've also studied the TUD Masters in BIM Management back in 2017 and have studied architectural technology to degree level as well, well over 10 years ago at this stage. So a lot of discussions I have with architects is that, you know, Revit doesn't necessarily lend itself graphically or workflow wise to something like an architectural design workflow, which needs to be quite organic. I can appreciate, you know, pen and paper is still quite important and always will be. Drawing board is. AutoCAD will always have its place. But I do like to think that the benefits of using Revit perhaps alongside your AutoCAD workflow or in replacement of your AutoCAD workflow are far more beneficial, and purely because you can pull things like conceptual 3D views like we're looking at here, as well as producing your 2D drawings. And I'm going to show you how to produce something like that in this webinar today. So there are also other pieces of software such as Format Pro, which I will cover. That's another architectural software produced by Autodesk, and it's kind of a mass modeling, conceptual modeling design tool that you're able to use alongside Revit as well. So I'll show you some of the benefits of working in that as well. So just a bit of an agenda. I'm going to just cover some of the Revit 2022 latest updates from the product. I'm going to do an introduction to Format Pro and an overview, and then I'm going to show you the workflow from Format Pro into Revit, and then for producing your first design model or first set of drawings within Revit as well. I'll show you how to get started. This should take just under an hour. There'll be questions, time for questions at the end, so please drop them in the chat box or feel free to send them to autodesk at diatec.ie. So just some of the updates in Revit 2022, just some of the libraries that you're able to load in, and this is relevant even if you haven't used Revit. They've improved the user interface of being able to import what are known as family objects, and these are your 3D objects such as windows, doors, furniture, anything like that is now accessible through a more user-friendly user interface where you can just load it in quite easily within your Revit environment. So they've improved that. You're able to native 2D PDF export. So that was very much welcomed definitely to this edition, whereas you didn't have that previously, but you're able to do it a lot easier now. And I know in AutoCAD we've been able to do that for quite a long time. So quite a welcomed update there. Other workflows such as 3D sketching and sending to Revit with Format Pro. I'm going to show you similar workflows to that today from working in Format and getting your information into Revit and sending your Format geometry into Revit, and you're able to preserve things like your materials and your layers. And I suppose the benefit of that is that you're producing that 3D model initially, and then you're You don't need to make any changes necessarily to it in Revit. You can just convert it into smart objects such as walls, windows, doors, and that type of thing as well. And you can also control your format layers as well, also within Revit. And keep in mind that they are two separate pieces of software, not to confuse you. Format is separate, Revit is separate. You can use them completely apart from each other, or you can integrate them with the same workflows along your design workflows. For those of you interested, I suppose, from the interoperability point of view, you're able to import format models as a CAD format into Revit. Again, much welcomed. If you're working on larger scale or more complex projects, such as in IFC format, which is a neutral, recognized global format for BIM models, Revit 2022 is now IFC4 certified as well, if you're working on that type of project. If you use Revit alongside Inventor, you can link Inventor assemblies into your Revit models as well. So that's much welcome for people maybe working alongside fabrication companies that are using Inventor, or even manufacturing companies that are using Inventor as well. Or you can download objects from Inventor file formats such as furniture, light fittings, that type of thing, and then bring it into format as well. There's also improved things like document efficiency. I won't hang around on this too much because I will show this example in the demonstration. But you can apply something called multi-category tags for all taggable categories. That's now in the Revit 22 version. Revision numbering and flexibility enhancements. If you're working to ISO 19650 or your particular standard requirements, you can now customize this to add such as prefix or suffix to denote a project stage. And this is relevant to type of things like a BIM framework project, such as if you're working in the UK government type projects that require ISO 19650. These are typically on larger projects, but it's good to keep in mind that the BIM standard out there is ISO 19650 for what's known as transitioning files or sharing files with other stakeholders. On the smaller size projects, you don't necessarily need to worry about that if you're not collaborating with other designers or other stakeholders. Within Revit, you can apply something called phases. In 2022, you can now view these phases in view filters. It may not make sense if you don't use Revit. However, just keep in mind that phases is extremely beneficial. So if you have existing buildings on site, or existing walls or construction on site, you can apply a phase to them of the existing phase, and then you can separate the other walls by calling them new construction, and you can actually visually filter through each of those different ones, and I'll show you some of that in the demonstration as well. Applying things like color fills, you could always do this in Revit, but they've improved, I suppose, the different color tones, and these are auto-generated for things like room tags. If you're placing rooms in a project, it will automatically color every different room name a different color. So if you've two rooms named bathroom, they'll both be the same color. But if you've different types of rooms, as we have in this demonstration, such as showers and unit, they automatically apply different colors, and I'll show you those color schemes within Revit as well. And the other software I'm talking about is Autodesk Format Pro. This allows you to capture ideas when they strike. Essentially, it's a mass modeling tool, but it can be used on a tablet device, such as an iPad or an Android. But I suppose the best thing with that is that you're able to then import that information into Revit once you come to that more detailed design stage. So that's kind of some of the workflow I will look at today, is looking at Format Pro and looking at Revit alongside that as well. So just to show you briefly, this is what Format is. So Format allows you to work on an iPad or on a desktop or in a web browser. In fact, you can perform early stage energy analysis. I will caveat that to just say it's probably conceptual stage is what that type of information is aimed at. But you can geolocate your model and pull in fairly accurate shadow analysis and solar analysis as well, such as solar radiation on a facade, on a particular roof, or you know, if you need to place solar panels, you'll know the best area where you're going to get your highest amount of solar radiation based on that as well. So you can mass model, you can use a stylus pen just by sketching on your iPad or on your mouse, or if you have some sort of tablet device for your desktop or laptop as well. And then you simply just extrude up the various different geometries. There are other similar software out there as well you may have seen, but this is Autodesk's solution to conceptual modeling and design modeling at the early stages as well. So you can add solar radiation analysis. So you simply just highlight it, go to analyze. It will pull in the location for that particular building where you've geolocated it, and it will actually tell you the different times of the year where you're going to get the solar radiation. So you know if you need to add in sun shading, pre-soleil, reduce your glazing, increase your glazing, etc., or where to place your solar panels, such as I mentioned already. So the first thing I'm actually going to do, I'm actually just going to jump into Revit first, as not to confuse you, because that's I suppose the main software we're here for today, and then we will jump into Format as well. I just want to explain Revit to those of you who may not be familiar with Revit, but I'll take it that you perhaps have seen it to a certain extent anyway in the last number of years. So Revit, very similar user interface if you have used Autocad, for example. It's got a ribbon toolbar across the top here. It's got something on the left here called your project browser, and these are where all your sheets and your different views sit, essentially your different viewports and your layouts if you're thinking of it from an Autocad perspective. You've got something called your properties tab. So if I select an object, for example, the properties will come up here on the left hand side. If I select this title sheet, all the properties will come up here on the left hand side. The same goes then if I jump into a 3D view. I can select this roof. All of the properties are going to appear here on the left, and by properties I mean finishes, area, the volume, the thickness of the roof, and you can even add custom parameters to this. I can even, for example, put in here zinc finish, and I'll show you the benefit of that in a moment. I can apply a zinc finish to this, and it's just making a note in the comments tab. I'm able to then schedule that out into a tabular form using Revit schedules as well. So just to understand how your 3D object relates to your properties on the left hand side, or these are also known as parameters, just to keep that in mind. So as a result of working in a 3D workflow, and this is just the Autodesk example that comes installed with Revit, it also produced your 2D floor plans, and within your 2D floor plans, all of this is interlinked to your 3D information as well. So for example, if I select this table, and if I go back to my 3D view, I can see that it's actually highlighted here. So if I delete this table, go back into my floor plan view, that table has been deleted. So the same goes for windows, doors, any type of 3D information that you model will be edited regardless of what view you change it in. There are a couple of, I suppose, caveats to that in terms of what's view specific, what's not. But generally speaking, if you model something in 3D, it appears in 2D and vice versa as well. So this is just the Autodesk example of a fairly, small enough project, residential house. I have seen and have used myself Revit for home extensions, and I find it extremely beneficial as well. So if you're working on that type of project, it's still very beneficial for that, even when it comes to things like existing buildings. So a one-off house, as we can see here, it's got all of the 3D content, and all of this content can actually be placed on drawing sheets similar to in AutoCAD, but it can also be you can all be scheduled out as well. So quantification, taking all your floor areas, your floor finishes, even your wall build-ups and that sort of thing as well. But we can kind of get more concerned about that, I suppose, at the detailed design stage. I want today just to look at using Revit as a design tool initially, and then looking at progressing onto your more detailed design stage, which Revit lends itself quite well to. You're able to produce 2D detailed design information, specification information. For example, as we can see in this other example, foundation information, all of the note tagging, all of your rebar, your foundation information, your foundation insulation, groundwork, all of that can be added within a 2D environment or within a 3D environment. What I will say about detailing, most of it is better done in the 2D environment within Revit, purely because you're not going to model every single rebar and bolt and screw necessarily in a particular 3D view, because then you'll just be there for a long time modeling it. And that's kind of the thing with Revit, is to get that balance between what will I 2D draw and what will I 3D model. And that will be will vary per project, but you'll definitely you'll learn your workflow as you go. A rule I suppose I like to work to is, obviously model your complete wall thickness with inside Revit, your roofs, all of your primary elements should be modeled within a 3D environment, even down to your furniture placement, your floor finishes, your windows, your doors, all of that key information. And then start to look at, okay, at construction stage, what am I actually going to 2D model? And that's quite a fine balance to be able to get within Revit. And it's very easily achieved as well, because within Revit, just modeling in 3D, everything comes together very, very fast paced, I have to say. And I'll show you some examples of that as well. So I just want to show you another example of a project I have here. So just to show you that Revit is for larger projects as well. If you're working on larger commercial or mixed use projects, Revit is extremely relevant for that type of project as well. Your workflows will vary if you're collaborating with other consultants, whereas if you're just modeling a one-off house and you're just looking to use Revit as a design tool for drawing production, it's a slightly different workflow. In fact, it's probably a bit easier for somebody who is not collaborating on a project necessarily, just in terms of time saving for that particular size of project, such as a one-off house. You can still bring in 2D information entirely. That's no problem whatsoever. You can still link in Autocad drawings as well, and I'll show you some examples of that. So here again we have a bigger 3D model. We have the complete land topography is modeled. I can see the area of that, the surface area of it as well, and again I can select any of these objects, even these trees for example, see what information these trees contain. If it's some sort of planting that we're trying to apply to the site, we can also schedule out this type of planting as well, if it's proposed landscaping for example also. Okay, so that's kind of looking at two different Revit projects. You can start a number of ways inside a project, and I suppose the initial way I like to start is in a Revit template. So I just go to New, just go to Project. So I'm just going to drop down, and these default templates come installed with Revit themselves. I always like to start with the architectural template. And the thing with a template is you will end up actually producing your own for your own company. So in a template, things like your drawing sheets are automatic. You can, of course, place in your own data in here. You can completely edit this title block to your complete, to your own specification that suits your business, for example. So you may want to delete some of these lines, make it your own. We can take out this logo, for example, put in your own logo. So for example, we can insert an image, or we can type in our ABC Architects, for example, and my spelling, ABC Architects. You can completely change obviously the text, the format of that text if you want. And again, if you have an image for your logo, you can import that image as well. And the title blocks are contained in something known as a Revit family. So a Revit family is comparable to a CAD block in that it's not a full Revit file. It's a partial family file that you just import into your Revit project, such as doors and windows are also family objects as well. I'll explain that in a bit more detail as we get modeling as well. So you can customize this. I can move all of these objects around, create a complete portrait version of this, A1 version, A0, whatever suits your business. I can even customize the colors, all of that kind of stuff. So very similar to AutoCAD, you can completely import your title blocks. That's no problem. So I'm just going to re-import this into my project one. That's the one I've started. So I've started in a blank project here. So there's absolutely nothing in this. So what I'm going to do is close these projects in the background. So I'm just going to close those examples that I had open, and I only want this particular Revit project to be open. So what I'm now going to do is just start modeling in Revit. So the main thing to understand before you start modeling in Revit is levels. So whenever you model something, it will always be constrained by a level. So it will always sit on a level. And when you think about it, when something is constructed on site, it's obviously always constrained to a level, whether that's ground floor, first floor, fifth floor, 10th floor, etc. An object such as a chair is going to reside on a floor. So floor levels are what are known as host levels. So when you set up your levels, so levels by default are set up in a Revit project, but you can set up your own Revit levels. If I can remember here, I usually use keyboard shortcuts, view, so here we are, so insert, annotate. Okay, so I can't even find levels. Well, I use keyboard shortcuts, that is why. So I type in LL for level in an elevation view. I can also duplicate these up if I want. So in an elevation view, I want to create a level, just hit LL. So I want to create another level. So I could call this my attic level, for example. So it's a good start to maybe create your levels initially before you start your project and before you start modeling in your project necessarily. And you can move these levels throughout your design process, no problem. Just keep in mind, if something is constrained to a level, it will move with it. And I suppose that's the intelligence of using a BIM type of software as well, is that you're able to move levels and your objects will move with them as well. That in itself does bring some efficiencies. So I'm going to create another level in here. Let's create a 3-story building. I'm just going to call that level 2. I can rename that. So we're in an elevation view here in our project browser on the left hand side. We've got a series of levels created. Level 1, level 0. Perfect. And we've got an attic level as well. So you don't necessarily have to create a ridge or roof level. I like to just create my principal levels in the levels that I'll be modeling onto. So for example, on the left hand side here, I've got floor plans, I've got attic level, level 0, level 1, I've got a site level, which will obviously be your site view above your roof, and I can create further views. So whenever you create a level, you can also create a plan view. So if you go into plan view, just go to floor plan, and it will allow me to create a level. So all of the other levels have floor plans, so it's only allowing me to create a floor plan for the level that I haven't placed on a floor plan. Click OK on that. So we've got level 0, level 1 and level 2. So if I close all of that, I'm now going to open my default 3D view. So you'll see up here there's a small default 3D view tab. So I'm going to open that up and I'm going to show you just on the right hand side, we're in a 3D environment, and I'm going to type in, if you type in WT, it brings you window tiles. So that means your two tabs are side by side. So you've got our 3D tab, we've got our 2D tab within the same project, or you can just hit tile views as well. That's the same way of doing it. So we've got our 2D view over here. So what I'm going to do, the first thing I always start with is modeling walls. We can put in floors afterwards. So I like to just model some walls. So I just hit my wall tool. So my left hand side, it by default selects a particular wall here. So these are all pre-installed walls. You can delete all of these walls if you want. I usually just overwrite them with my own particular wall. So what I do at design stage, I like to just create a blank wall. So what I do, I duplicate this wall. I'm just going to call it a 450mm wall. We can add in detail afterwards. So edit. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to delete absolutely everything in this wall. And I know I'm moving quite fast here, but I just want to show you how quick it is to get a wall drawn up or placed within inside Revit as well. So I'm very simply just going to start dragging my wall. I can type in the different dimensions here if I want as well. So I can put in 5,000, it gives me a 5-meter wall. And you can see on the right hand side, all of that information is also being generated up there. We'll put in the slanted wall as well. Pull that down. So what you could have done here is in fact imported your boundary drawing from a 2D Cad plan, and I will show you how to do that now in a moment. So let's say that you have a CAD floor plan created, or even a topography taken in from a surveyor's drawing. You can in fact link that in as well. So I have one on my desktop, I believe, drawing 1, colors, I'll just set that to black and white, auto detect. That's fine. I want to place this at level 0. Just going to hit OK on that. So you can see here on the left hand side, I'm actually modeling in level 2. So everything, if I go into my 3D view, everything is modeling at level 2. So you can see that that's actually imported at a larger scale. So that could be your site boundary, but it was actually supposed to be a floor plan of a building that I generated initially. So I'll just X that. So what I'm going to do again is manage, insert, link CAD, and hit drawing 1. And what I'm going to do is set that to millimeters, place it at level 0, click OK, and you can see it has actually come in there. So I'm going to pull that off to the side. So I can actually start modeling over this within level 0 now if I want. So here is our CAD plan. I can start now modeling over this. So I like to pin it in place. That means you can't move it or drag it. It's in its place. And these 4 arrows are actually your elevation markers. So I can actually move these, and these are just the directions that your elevation will face. So my elevation is going to be within there. Pull that one over there. And these are just related to my elevation views, my east, north, south and west over here. So as I move these, this information is actually being updated as well in the background. So if you move an elevation line, your drawing of elevation updates as well. So that's obviously quite beneficial. Now, the reason we're not seeing this being in this particular floor plan is because it's modeled at level 2 and we're in level 1. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going again to move that. I'm going to select all of these walls. I'm going to place the base constraint as level 0. I'm going to make my top constraint attic level. I'm just going to hit apply, and you can see that now comes in there. So what that's done is it's the base constraint has been set to level 0, so it starts at level 0, and the top constraint is up to attic level. So now it runs up to attic level. If I in fact go into my elevation view here, if I want to move my attic level, for example, if I wanted to make this 10 meters, for example, I hit that, and you can see because all of these walls are constrained to attic level, they will all move to the 10 meters as well. So it kind of gives you that flexibility to move everything at once as well. So we've got that kind of building created there. So what we want to do now is the CAD plan that we've actually imported, we want to turn that into a building as well alongside this one. So you can see here we've kind of got the walls drawn at they've got a hatch inside them, but it's just at design stage. I'm just going to turn that off. Just going to set that to coarse. So I'm just going to set that to coarse. So down here, these are your view settings. It only changes it in this view. It's just a visual thing. And if I zoom in, you can see we've got a kind of a grey hatch and we've got a black outline. I can in fact change this in the wall build-up if I want. You may want to put in your change everything to black perhaps. Maybe you want the walls hatched black. I can go into graphics and just change that at the coarse level, and you can see it updates in level 2 as well. But that hasn't affected if I go to fine level of detail, which we can come back to later. But just at design stage, you just want to create that kind of black wall outline. So now what I'm going to in fact do is I'm going to select all of those. They are facing the wrong way. The reason I know they're facing the wrong way is because these arrows should actually be facing outwards. That just means that the wall is on the outside, and I suppose that's relevant if you're adding finishes to a wall. So here we have our CAD plan. This only exists at a 2D level. You can see it in 3D there. It just exists at the 2D level, and you can see it's in fact, it tells me the name of it is drawing1.dwg, and it's linked in. I could in fact open up Autocad and edit this floor plan if I wanted to. So I could close down my desktop. I could go into drawing 1, open up this. So quickly, so very similar to how an XREF works. You can link in your particular CAD file, and this is a very common workflow for when you're transitioning to Revit, and I've in fact done this myself on numerous projects. So open up drawing 1. I can now in fact I can maybe add in some boundary walls, room bounding walls within here. So maybe I want to offset that. And this could be if you're working with 2 people in your office who are working in CAD, you can have this linked into your Revit software, and you can just refresh it every time. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to hit Control S on that. I'm going to save it and jump back into Revit. And all I'm going to go to do is go to Manage Links up here, go to CAD, and I'm just going to reload this. You can see it's reloaded in there. Hit reload on that, and you can see the updated CAD plan comes in as soon as you refresh it as well. So that's a common workflow when you're transitioning to Revit or to BIM to work in. So what I'm going to do is I want to place walls over this. I'm going to go to my wall tool. I'm going to use the same 450mm wall, and all I'm going to do is I want to pick finish face exterior. So all I'm going to do is I just tabbed into that. It selects every line, but we don't want the internal lines. So all I'm going to do is go to pick lines up here and just start placing the walls on those lines. So you can see we've got lines here, lines here, lines here, and lines here. So I am actually going to fillet this one. So you got a trim and extend command the same way you do in Revit. And obviously this is all being produced within, I'm actually modeling in the 3D environment here. And again, you can see it's being placed at level 2, which is not ideal and will happen. All I need to do now is select level 0, and I want actually the top constraint to be level 1. So that'll just be a single story building sitting out there. I was able to quite easily move all of that. So I can in fact go into my level 0. Now I want a 100mm wall in the middle of this. I will go in here into my walls, and I'm going to create a new wall because I don't have a 100mm wall created. I don't, so I'm going to duplicate this one. And these wall build-ups will all be contained in your template. You only need to create them once really, and once you start a new project, you will then create them again. So it is going to replace this wall, but I'll show you how to change that in a moment. It did that only because I had it selected, so I'm going to undo that. And now I'm going to place this particular 100mm wall, this one, pick lines, and let's see where that came in. So that is now, the base constraint is level 0, as I can see, but it's going up, it has an unconnected height. I can in fact change the unconnected height so there's no top constraint whatsoever. And obviously this will happen across buildings, but it's always nice to constrain to different levels because it kind of helps if levels change on a project. You know, structural engineer might say we need a higher floor level, or the slab has increased, so you're able to move the levels based on that as well. And levels, I like to base them on the finished floor level, or the finished slab level. Just keep it common across your project is the main thing. So we've kind of got 2 buildings created nice and easily there, and I'm just going to start placing. What I'm going to do is create a drawing sheet now just to place these onto. So I'm actually going to delete my Cad plan. We don't need that anymore. I can delete it, it removes it. And I'm just going to place these onto a sheet. I've got my scale here. I've got my sheet created here. And this is my 3D view. I want to go to my level 0. So level 0, I've got my floor plan. I want to go into my sheet. And all I'm going to do is just drag on my particular floor plan. So I can in fact change the scale. So it's not really fitting. I can rotate it if I want. So I can rotate it so that it fits on an A1 sheet or whatever your particular sheet is. And I can do something, I can crop this area as well. So this cropping is only view specific. It doesn't affect the model whatsoever. And this should hide then the elevation markers as well if you don't want them to appear. So I want the view cropped, but I want to hide the crop region. So that's how you control that. So it has, our title has been brought in here. You can turn off these titles. You can edit this title as well. You can control the text of it, the rotation of it. That's absolutely no problem. But the main thing is that it automatically brings in the name of the level and the scale. So if I change the scale to 1:50, that will automatically update. Okay, so I'm going to make this drawing just look a bit tidier. So what I'm going to do is start placing windows and doors quite quickly. So I'm just bringing the window tool. So I'm just placing all of these windows along here. And these are all just being placed at the ground floor level. So I'm just doing this nice and quick just to give you an inclination. And then I'm using keyboard shortcuts, so DR for door or WN for window, and you can place them quite easily along here. So we've got a floor plan created there. If I go into my 3D view, I can in fact see my 3D view has placed all of those windows and objects as well. So I can, in fact, what else I can do is I can change the size of these windows. So I want to edit this window. So this is where I suppose type and instance parameters are quite relevant. So if I select this window, I can drop down and change that window and it will update there. But if I want to change this window across the entire project, hit edit type. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to rename this one. I'm going to name it, I want a what do I want? I want a 1.5 meter by 1.5 meter window. So I'm just going to rename it, and I'm going to change the size of it. And you can see that that has reflected across the entire project. Everywhere that window exists, that has been placed there as well. So what I'm going to make this a single story building just because we're a bit pressed on time. So I'm just going to reduce that down to level 1. Just keep it nice and simple for now. And we're going to go into level 0, and we're going to just start placing some internal walls within here as well. So we can place some internal walls. So I can move that across. For example, I can do something now called room tags. So I'm going to place some room tags. So that is a object that tells me what square meter or what perimeter that room is. I'm going to place room tags, and these tags can appear in your drawings. So it tells me what square meter it is or what square foot. You can turn that off also. And I'm going to apply a color scheme. So color scheme based on rooms, based on room name. I'm going to hit apply on that. Now it's given me 3 different rooms, all the same color. And what I'm in fact going to do is I'm going to rename these. I'm going to rename this office. I'm going to rename this one to public hall. And you can see that the color is actually updating, and I can call this bathrooms. You can see that the color has updated and they're all individual now. So if I was to add another room, for example, and name it as something else, if I was to add some sort of internal room in here, place a room within here as well, and then place a room tag on that, it's in fact given that an individual color as well. I can call this plant room. So that's kind of building up your floor plan sheet as well as building up your 3D view as well. So I can in fact all of these walls, I can select all these walls and set the upper constraint to level 1. Hit apply on that. We've got our floor plan created easily enough, and I appreciate this is probably quite a simple building, but I just want to show you the principles of modeling your objects. I can then place a roof on this building, roof by footprint. I need to do that in at level 1. I can do it level 0 if I want as well. I'm going to do it level 1. I'm going to select the walls. I want a 500mm overhang on my roof, and all I'm going to do here is hit tab, press roof. I want all of the roofs to be pitched, all of the planes. You can see that's generated the roof automatically. Go in here, and our roof has been placed at level 0. I just need to change that to level 1. And we can see our roof has been placed, and we can edit this roof very, very easily. So I can in fact go into level 1, edit footprint. I can select this. I can say, okay, I don't want that to be a pitched roof. I can turn that off. I can make this a non-pitch roof as well. Hit finish on that. Go back into my 3D view, and you can see that you've got kind of a mono pitch, and it will automatically update the mono pitch. And now I can attach these wall elements to it as well. You can, and then we know that obviously in here we need to then edit this wall or draw a wall in here, which is also very easily done. So what I'm going to do now is just place a 3D view on a sheet, very simply. Go into level 0, go up to view, 3D view, camera, and pull a 3D view in here. Has created a crude enough 3D view, but you can edit these visual graphics. So I'm going to go to GD, graphic display. I like to smooth lines, turn on my shadows, and I like to turn on my background to a gradient. Hit apply on that. I like to make my ground level white, so it disappears in the background. And there are lots of different view settings I can mess around with here. I can even add different materials. I can even add a realistic view if I want, which is kind of it's not fully rendered, but it gives you a slightly photorealistic effect to your drawings as well. Probably not the most presentable. So what I like to do is change that. So what I'm going to do is in this wall, I'm actually going to edit the material of this wall. So I'm going to just turn in, I want to just turn in a blank. So what do we got here? Brick. We can change it to brick if we want. Just see if I have a render finish in here. Default. We've got a render beige smooth. So I can update that in that wall. So that's just changing the wall build up. And you can see that's edited that and placed the new material on wherever that particular wall applies. So we've got a fairly, not the best looking architectural building. We can change the sills of these windows, by the way, as well. Just hit apply on that, change the sills. So I can now place that 3D view onto a sheet, 3D view 1. So I can place that onto a sheet. So you can definitely add more, I suppose, architectural elements to your building as well. You can, in fact, if I want, what I can also do is start placing trees and stuff like that around. So CM for component. Oh, I've got some desks. I'm going to place. Let's place some desks in here as well. Let's assume this is an office. You can place these, obviously, dimension-wise, no problem at all. So let's place that one there. We've no doors into any of these rooms, so place some doors there. So now I can start placing some trees just to kind of give it a bit of a prettier look. I may have some trees. I've got some trees loaded in here on the left hand side, or you can load in trees from your library. So there's got a complete library in here of walls, windows, doors, landscaping, furniture, absolutely everything. So I've got some trees. The left hand side, I'm just going to start placing these. You can see they're actually coming in the 3D view as well, so you can start to kind of architecturally improve your drawing, but you can change the graphics. You're in a lot of control of changing the graphics as well. We've kind of got this building off to the side here that doesn't really make sense for now. So we've got our 3D view, we've got these created. So that's basically how to start modeling in a Revit project. Keep in mind about level constraints and different types of parameters, such as instance parameters. So an instance parameter exists in here and will only apply to this particular wall. If I go to edit type, that will change the type parameter, and wherever the 450 wall appears, it will change it in the entire project. So you've got instance parameters, which are only that particular single existence, or type parameters, which will reflect across the entire project wherever this particular 450mm wall does appear. So now I'm going to create a quick room schedule. New schedule. Just go to what I'm going to do here is create a room schedule. So areas, click OK. I want the area, the name, and the level of the room. Click OK on that. That has given me a fairly basic room schedule. I can now go into this, and that's an accurate real-time room schedule. I can drag this onto my sheet if I want. I can rename it so it's a bit more intelligently named as well. But that's essentially getting started, and schedules work the same way for importing checking quantifications of doors, for example. I could create a door schedule in here if I wanted. Also, if I just go to doors, so D for doors, I want to create a door schedule. I want the finish of the door. I want something called the type of door. So type and finish of the door. Click OK on that. And that's going to give me a complete list of the doors. So the finish has not been, we haven't added a finish to the particular doors. That's absolutely fine. I can also bring in the family. So the family of door. So it tells me what the category of that door is. Is it doors, external, double flush? You can create your own families. And again, I can place all of this door schedule information onto a particular project. So I appreciate this project is probably quite basic, but I just wanted to explain the principles of getting started in a Revit project and how customizable you can actually make your particular Revit project as well. So that's a quick overview of Revit. What I want to show you now is just if you were to start this project in Format, for example. So here we have Format. So what I'm going to do is geolocate my site. So I'm going to pick a site down here in Tralee where I'm based. So I want to import my satellite image. Just let's say it's a greenfield site being imported there. So that's brought in that. And if I go into my layers, it's actually brought in an indication of the terrain. And this is fairly accurate to a degree. I wouldn't go constructing of it, but I mean, generally it's fairly accurate in terms of the fall of the land is moving a certain direction and that kind of thing as well. So what I could actually do in here, if I wanted to, was start to model my building in here. So I'm just going to change my settings to millimeters. So keep in mind this is a completely separate workflow to Revit, but you can cross them over. So I'm going to model a different type of building in here. So I'm just going to keep it fairly simple. So what I'm going to do is import up a tower building. I can start to add in more detail into this if I really want. I can even start to kind of extrude that down, move this out if I want. And probably a bit overpowering of a building for the context. Let's completely pull it down and be respectful of the neighbors. So I'm going to pull this down so we're not overpowering the neighbors. We want a nice community building, and it looks after everyone. So we've got kind of a school or community building that's being constructed there. You can add a lot more detail, add on different blocks. What I can do with this now is import it into Revit. So what I'm going to do is export to, I was going to save it on my desktop, export. So yes, I want to replace that. So now I'm going to go into Revit, and what I'm going to do is go into my 3D environment, into this one, go to add-ins, just go to import format to Revit, desktop. There we go, hit open on that. And that has imported that object into my 3D environment. So I can now convert this to new objects if I want. So architecture, I can go wall by face and select my 450mm wall, and I can start to just select my walls, and this is actually adding in the walls. It's replacing the massing that I just created within Format, and I can now, in fact, I could delete that or turn it off. Select that, and we've got our walls created from our format model alongside our other project as well, and then we can start adding in our window objects as well. Obviously we want quite bigger objects. Let's say we want a nice, let's say they're really big 3.5 meter windows. So I'm just going to call this 3.5 meter and apply, hit OK on that. I want to create a couple more of these around. You can start placing your windows along. I can completely control, I could select all of these, change the sill level, say you want the sill level to 500 at ground floor level, hit apply, and just change the level to level 0, simple. And I can in fact duplicate these up as well. So simply duplicate these up to my next level. Duplicate these up to my, I can put that level 1. Sill height, let's make it 500. Now we need to go a bit higher, our floor levels are a little off to our windows. And you can keep duplicating and building up your building in that capacity as well. So I should probably place a roof on this. So roof, I just want to put a mono pitch. So what I'll do is just create my roof. Select my walls. I don't want an overhang, I just want it to be a flush roof. So I'm just going to select all of my walls. Select those 4 walls, hit define slope, because I'm going to turn it off and I want this one to define the slope. Hit apply. I'll hit attach, because when you hit attach, it in fact tidies up oh, it's gone to the wrong level. That's what's happened there. So, we've gone from level 0, let's go from level 2. Apply. I can in fact change the pitch of that. If I only want a 5-degree roof. 5 degree, let's go from attic level. So the reason for that is this wall is 20 meters high and this roof is not at 20 meters high. So I can go to level 0, change that to 20 meters, and apply on that. And you can see we've got a nice tidy roof created on our large community building that you can start to add more detail very similar to this as well. So that's taking something from Format. You can do a lot more in Format, as I said, such as the solar analysis. I can do solar analysis. Takes a second, just pulls in local weather information, hit analyze on that, and you can see we've got our gradient map of our solar radiation on our building, and this building that we've imported into Revit already, you're now better informed about the solar radiation on that, allowing you to design your building in a lot more detail. So keep in mind that what we have looked at is probably quite a simple type project, but obviously there are lots of other project sample files that come installed with Revit. You can get really complex, and keep in mind that the sample files have lots of information that you can use. So I like to open this one, that you can actually go into these projects and start to look at how they're actually modeled as well, and start to look at them in more detail, such as, you know, the type of materials that they've used, turning on shadows, you know, the different types of materials that they've used on the facade, on the particular curtain panels, these particular steel elements or structural elements as well. You can even copy those into your own project as well, and start to reuse them as well from your own project. So that's getting started with Revit. I hope that was helpful. Feel free to book the follow-up consult with myself, autodesk@diatec.ie, and more than happy to help out there. Thank you very much. I'll now take any questions, and I hope that was helpful. So I'm now free to take any questions. Please just drop them in the chat box if you can. It should be available on your Zoom bar or in the Q&A box, whichever suits. So thanks everybody for attending. Really appreciate it. I did pre-record that, but I am here live today. Happy to answer any of your questions, or even please book that follow-up call if you want, and we can advise you and help you on your BIM journey. So there's a question: can you import a Revit model into Format? You can, yes. There's a number of different formats that you can actually import into Format. You can also import your Revit objects into Format, which is kind of a workflow. If you're using Format, you can get it to link with your furniture objects, for example, that exist inside Revit as well. So if you have chairs objects within Format, when you then import your Format model into Revit, it will replace all of those objects with the Revit objects as well as being able to create your walls. But you can do it both ways as well. So you can import a Revit model into Format, yes. So if I go to import, so down here, you can take in, it will bring it in as a 3D type, so an OBJ file, or it will convert to a DWG file. It won't directly take in a RVT file, but it does take it in as an OBJ or an AXM file as well. So AXM is the common format for a format file, or FBX as well. It also takes in SketchUp files, just to keep that in mind. If you're using SketchUp on your projects, that also works with Format, and you can actually bring SketchUp files into Revit as well. Something else I usually demonstrate in Format, and I didn't have a chance to show it today, and I think this is one of the coolest things about Format. I did show it on one of the CETA presentations the other day. If you use Format Pro, so here we have Format Pro. If you have another colleague that's based, you know, in Ireland or in separate offices, or, you know, most people probably work in separate locations at the moment, you can in fact collaborate together on the same model in very real time, and I will show you very quickly. Well, there's no more questions coming in. I can in fact, whatever I model in here, I can share that with my colleagues, and they can see live updates. So I'm just going to extrude this. So I'm just going to model a very basic shape. I can in fact change my top view. Sorry, I'm just going to change my units. What I'm going to do is just model a basic shape in here. So I'm just going to extrude that up. Oh. So I'm just going to extrude that up, basic, but I want to share this with a colleague. Just go to share, start collaboration session. I can start a session. So if I hit start session, I copy this link to a clipboard. I then, I can email it to a colleague. I can email it to a colleague. That colleague will then receive that link. They then paste that link into their web browser. So keep in mind that this is two separate locations. This can be separate parts of the world, separate parts of your county or Ireland or whatever. So the other person has received that link. They're now logging into that model. So I just happen to be the same person here, but keep in mind this is two separate people. They're now logging in and they can see everything that I see. So while again, I don't want to confuse people, but this is essentially two separate people working in the same model. It's format here. So two separate people. So person B can now come into this model and we can start actually modeling in here as well. So I can start placing down different objects. I can start extruding and you can see the person screen on the left is updating as well. So this is all happening in real time. Purely just through an internet connection, and it works completely in real time. So you could be doing this over a conference call, or you could be messaging them in the chat box as well through Format Pro. So keep that in mind. It is like extremely powerful for remote collaboration, which unfortunately some of us find ourselves doing a lot these days. So just being able to iterate, create massing, placing even the site terrain in here, it will then appear here, and then even importing external objects if you want as well. So keep in mind that for Format Pro as well, extremely powerful for remote collaboration. Just before I finish up, just mentioning that Diatec Group have 3 offices. Their HQ is in Dublin, in Clontarf, and they also have offices in Cork as well. The CCAD are now part of the Diatec Group, just to keep that in mind as well. And for any sales or inquiries, you can phone Jim Barrett if you want, based in Cork, on 086 300 086 8300 138. And if you wanted to request a demo, either with myself or with our other technical consultants, whether it's on Revit, whether it's on BIM 360, Navisworks, anything Autodesk or BIM related, we're happy to have a chat as well. Oh, and we've an office in Galway as well. Keep that in mind. So without further ado, I don't see any more questions coming in, but please get in contact with us. More than happy to have that chat with you anytime and to get that booked in. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending. I wish you a good week and a good weekend as well when we get there.